All right, class, welcome to week 4 of college composition, advanced English composition. And this week we are working toward our next essay, which is due at the end of week 6, the explanatory synthesis. So I thought it would be good to spend some time talking about thesis statements and what is the point. So let's go ahead and get started. So a thesis statement clearly presents to an audience the point of an essay. So this will be the main idea that the entire essay will try to prove, and the thesis statement should go beyond relating the topic of an essay. So the thesis statement, a couple things that it's not. A thesis statement should not be a question. A thesis statement should not be only in your point of view, meaning first person perspective. We shouldn't see any I's or me's in thesis statements. And a thesis statement should not be found anywhere but the beginning of the paper. And generally speaking, it's going to be the last sentence or two at the end of the introduction paragraph. So I should find the thesis statement 4 paragraphs in. It really needs to be stated at the beginning. So let's keep on talking about these thesis statement things. So what does it need to have? So a thesis statement, because it's that, it's the statement that basically shares what the whole paper is going to be about. It needs to be more than just a topic stated. So this essay is about homelessness. That's not really enough. It actually needs to include more than that. It needs to have the topic of the paper, absolutely. But in any type of paper, you're going to have some sort of point of view or stance that you're going to communicate concerning the topic. So whether it's a persuasive essay or an explanatory synthesis, it needs to be clear what the purpose or point of view of the topic is going to be. So if it's a compare and contrast, that needs to be clear. If it's trying to get you to agree with something, that needs to be clear. But your point of view that you are taking in the paper needs to be clear in that thesis statement. And then you need to share how you intend to prove that point of view. So it actually needs to go through and give some specifics. And why would we do this? Well, you see, the thesis statement is kind of like a roadmap to the rest of the paper. It's supposed to let the reader know what's going to happen. So there's not a bunch of surprises and things. It should be clear what the main idea is going to be. So then the rest of your paper can work to prove that point of view rather than leave the reader guessing all the time what's going to happen. So it's important to include the topic of the paper, the point of view you're taking concerning that topic, and how you plan to prove it. So let's look at some examples. Here I have some compare and contrast thesis statements. The first one says good, so this is kind of the low end, but it says these authors address similar issues in their books. So the purpose of the essay is clear. We're going to be comparing the similarities of 2 different authors, or it could be more than 2, who knows, multiple authors. What is lacking in this statement? Well, we don't know who the authors are, for one thing, so it's not clear on the exact topic of the paper. We don't know what their books are, so there's another element concern that we don't know what's going on, and we don't know how. So we don't have that last element of proving the point of view. So how are they similar? What issues are going on? So you're not getting the full picture with this statement. Yes, we have a purpose and we have a general topic, but it's not specific enough. So the second one, the better thesis statement. So we have Charles Dickens and Charlotte Bronte address several of the same issues in their novels, Hard Times and Jane Eyre. This is much better because we have more specific detail. We know who the authors are, Charles Dickens and Charlotte Bronte. We know that we're comparing those two, what the similar issues they have in their novels. And not only that, we have the names of the books, Hard Times and Jane Eyre. So you have topic, we have a point of view, and we basically have a small amount of how they're going to discuss it. So we know that we're going to discuss Charles Dickens and Charlotte Bronte, and more specifically, these particular novels, Hard Times and Jane Eyre. Now, this could even go further. The thesis statement can be 1 or 2 sentences long. So if you feel like you can't get all the information in 1 sentence, feel free to write 2. Try not to go over that. But the last sentence or last statement is the more complete, the best thesis statement of the three. So let's go ahead and read that. So Charles Dickens and Charlotte Bronte address several of the same issues in their novels, Hard Times and Jane Eyre. Not only do these two authors confront issues such as divorce and social class structure, but share themes such as biblical or religious references. So this last thesis statement is the best because it not only shares the topic, it not only shares the point of view, but it also gives specific details on how the writer of this paper is going to prove that point of view. So we could basically take this thesis statement and flesh out an outline for the entire paper because we know what issues are going to be covered. We know that we're talking about Charles Dickens, his novel Hard Times. We're going to talk about divorce, social class structure, and religious references in that novel. And then we have Charlotte Bronte, her novel Jane Eyre, and then the issues of divorce, social class structure, and biblical or religious references in her work. And then we're going to compare them and show how they are similar. So it's very clear what the essay is about, what is going to happen in the essay, and so then the writer just needs to put it all together. So a thesis statement should be clear like this. It should have a topic, it should have a stance, and it should have your proof all laid out there for the reader to understand. Some people go, well, it's more exciting if we don't know what's going to happen in the essay. And I would say leave the excitement for a short story. In terms of an essay that you are going to research, you're going to provide evidence, that point of view needs to be clear so the reader has the expectation of what is going to be proven in that particular paper. So like I said before, because the clarity of that last thesis statement, we could basically create an outline based on that thesis statement. So of course we'd start with your introduction, with the attention grabber and the thesis statement, and then you could break it up according to those main ideas that are presented in the thesis statement. Divorce, and we have Dickens and his work with divorce, Bronte's work with divorce. How are they similar? Are there any differences between the two? Then go on to social class structure. Just like the thesis statement said, talk about Dickens, talk about Bronte, how they work together. Then biblical and religious themes, just like the thesis statement said. Dickens' work, Bronte's work, how they work together, and then finally wrap it all up at a conclusion. And we remember a conclusion restates the thesis statement, and perhaps it relates it back to the attention grabber, but it sums everything up and brings it to a clear close. So let's talk about this in terms of what we're going to be doing soon. So we have what's coming up, an explanatory synthesis essay. So this is basically your assignment is going to be to address an ethical dilemma that you have faced in the past. And you're going to present it with evidence backing it up. So you're going to use some research within this area. We have some essays in our textbook that you can take a look at, or you can do research in the library or on your own through the internet. But you're going to use at least two sources and synthesize those together to back up your opinion about that particular topic. So you're thinking about an ethical dilemma and you are explaining the dilemma, meaning giving both sides. And you might also share what you think is the strongest of the two sides, but we're trying to be as unbiased as possible in this particular essay. So for instance, if I were writing about the ethical dilemma of homelessness, I might want to cover these main ideas. So I have the topic, which is the homelessness issue in the United States. I have different points of view and different things I want to cover. So shouldn't the individual give their time, energy, and money to help the homeless, or should homelessness only be dealt with by professional organizations and the government? So that's kind of the dilemma: individual care or national organization care. So my thesis statement, once I think about those elements, put them all together, my thesis statement might be: as individuals in the United States, the issue of homelessness stares us in the face through the piercing gazes of people living on the streets of our own towns, cities, and states. Though the compassion in us draws us to give time, energy, and money to combat this issue, it may not be able to combat the drawbacks of losing focus from a more national solution. So here in the thesis statement, I have my clear topic of homelessness, and I state the dilemma that is going on. Is it the difference between individual compassion and national solutions, and which one is better, basically, is being stated in this thesis statement. And we can go through and develop an outline based on this. I would have an outline based on what individuals would want to do, giving their time, energy, and their money, and how national focus organizations in the government do the same thing, which is the better solution. And so I could basically develop my whole paper from this thesis statement. So thesis statements, I think, are important. Remember, they come at the end of your first paragraph in your paper. We'll be continuing to discuss thesis statements as we develop our ideas. In the discussion board this week, you're going to talk about different synthesis essays that we have in our reading, as well as kind of brainstorm for this next essay. So when you start to work on your idea for an ethical dilemma synthesis paper, these are some things to think about as you work to develop your thesis statement. So what is the ethical dilemma that you are going to address? That's going to be the main thing, your topic. What are the sides of the argument? So what two sides, or maybe there's multiple perspectives on the argument, and what do you think is the strongest point of view? Which do you side with? Do you think that should be incorporated into your thesis statement? You should look at the reading and try to determine how you would project that element into your paper. And then how will you integrate the two point of views? How will you put them together in the final paper? So once you've answered these questions, you should be able to create that thesis statement. And I really look forward to seeing them. You're welcome to, as you're brainstorming this week, put your possible working thesis statements on the board, and we could talk about those too this week. So things to keep in mind for this week's expectations: you need to read page 184 to 105 in the sequence for academic writing and respond to the week 4 discussion board questions. We also have a quiz this week over session 24. So work through Word Power Made Easy session 24. That's on page 240 to 246. And take that quiz. I'll be emailing you out the password for the quiz. And if you don't get that email from me, please contact me as soon as possible, and I'll make sure that you get that. And of course, keep in mind that we have our second essay, the explanatory synthesis, due at the end of week 6. So we have week 4, week 5, week 6 to work on this next essay. So I hope that you have a great week. If you do have any questions, feel free to contact me, and we'll see you in the discussion board. Bye.